Okay, on the last video I got 2 comments that are going to influence the next 2 videos that you'll see on this channel. The first is from Professor Okori, or Okori, I don't know. Could you do a video on major deck archetypes, such as landfall, tribal, and so forth? The second is from a friendly Fae. Deck building is a topic that I think should be touched on for new players. It's a bit more complicated than some might think. So before we can talk about deck building, we should talk about what kind of deck you might want to build in the first place. And now I do need to mention that there's a difference between archetypes and themes. Aggro, combo, and control are the 3 archetypes that exist in the game, and then the theme is how your deck accomplishes your chosen archetype. The professor has a video on archetypes and goes into quite a bit of detail. I'll link that in the description if you want to watch it. But to make it simple, aggro is just attacking players with creatures, combo is using a few cards that work together to make something crazy happen, and control is a matter of stopping other players from playing the game so they never want to play with you again. Now let's talk about themes. And of course, I'll try not to waste too much of your time.
Space Coconut.
EDA Trek is going to be your #1 source for commander deck building, so we'll use that to look at a few themes that you might be interested in building. At the top of the list is artifacts. Every deck wants to use mana rocks to ramp it, so you can cast your commander quicker and allow you to do more things faster than your opponents can. Building an artifact deck does this, and then depending on how you build it, it can create the longest turns physically possible, turning a 4-player game of Magic into a 1-player game of Solitaire by forcing your opponents to die of boredom. But while this symmetry can create a very effective combo deck, it also allows artifact aggro to be equally effective. I have a Shorikai Vehicles deck that is devastatingly resilient, that wins through combat even though Shorikai is a phenomenal combo engine piece by itself. I bring this up because while we called this the artifact theme, I said I built a deck using vehicles as the primary win condition, which leads us into the next theme, tribal. The basic idea behind a tribal deck is to use the same type of creature throughout the deck, with only a handful of other creatures that help in specific situations. Elves, vampires, zombies, and humans are probably the most popular tribes you'll hear about, but you may find yourself enjoying a specific creature type like hydras or vehicles and decide to build a deck around them instead. There really isn't much to this theme other than sticking to the best creatures you can out of your collection and then supplementing it with spell support. EDA Trek will help you find the best pieces, but you can also dig through your own cards and put something together that'll work to see if you like that theme before you spend any money buying better pieces for it. You should be warned though, not all tribes will do well in a deck. Only recently has an Angel Tribal Commander been released that is specifically designed for tribal support, specifically Angel Tribal support. There's also a Phoenix Commander that's been released recently, and while it works with other Phoenix cards, it doesn't exactly have the support it needs because of how few Phoenixes have been printed and how few cards directly support the creature type. When this happens, people will often find a sub-theme that will work with the primary theme of the deck. Since Cyrix wants creature cards to leave the graveyard, and a Phoenix will come back to the battlefield from the graveyard, a clear Reanimator sub-theme presents itself, which, of course, leads us to the next theme, Reanimator. The idea behind a Reanimator deck is to get cards into your graveyard and then channel your inner Necromancer to bring them back onto the battlefield. Ideally, you'll throw away expensive creatures at the beginning of the game to cheat them onto the battlefield for much less than they'd cost normally, forcing your opponents to deal with a big threat much earlier than they might be expecting. There are a few key cards that will do this, and some of them are a pretty penny, but there are certainly cheaper and not so expensive options for key pieces to make sure this strategy works smoothly. EDA Trek helps us here by showing us options and the cost we might have to pay for them. The idea of getting cards into graveyards, again, will lead us into the next theme, Aristocrats. The idea behind the Aristocrats theme is to have a bunch of low-cost creatures or tokens out and then sacrifice them for value. Sometimes for mana, sometimes a creature ability, but most often as a means to damage your opponents. Cards like Blood Artist, Goblin Bombardment, and Impact Tremors are the main cards you might see with this strategy. Sometimes, if you've managed to make enough tokens, you might even deal enough damage to win the game. And speaking of tokens, that of course leads us to the next theme: tokens. Okay, so tokens aren't real cards in Magic the Gathering. They represent creatures or other permanents that the player creates from actual cards. This theme focuses on making as many of them as possible to either swarm your opponents with a ton of small ones, or a handful of huge ones, or even making copies of other permanents. Humans, goblins, saprolings, and spirits are some of the most common tokens in Magic. Now, what does that sound like to you? If you said it sounds like tribal, then congratulations! You've discovered Magic's biggest secret. Every theme is interchangeable with each other. You can mix and match them however you like depending on the commander you choose to suit your needs, and if that commander can support the theme you want to try. So when it comes time to pick a commander, or you find a card that you really want to build around, remember that you can probably do anything you want with it. And with that, we come back to the beginning, because now that you have a better understanding of themes that you can use in your decks, you can start brewing it. Okay, I know I didn't cover every theme in the game. Most notably, I forgot to mention landfall in the first place, and that's just when land enters the battlefield, something happens. That's the idea behind that theme. But that's what EDH Rec is for. But honestly, picking your commander should be what leads you into picking a theme, so you should start there with your commander. Next time, we'll talk about that question from a friendly Fae, and I'll walk you through my personal process for building a deck. Maybe it'll make the process a little bit easier for you. Let me know what you thought of this video, and if you have a topic you want made into a video, leave it in the comments below and we'll see what I can do. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike it if you disliked it, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.